the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Thursday night's edition of the Rangers Journal. I'm your host, Jock, and tonight I am joined by Stevie and Billy. Stevie, how are you, mate?
Good evening, mate. Good evening, Billy. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good evening to everybody. How are you?
I'm grand. And Billy, how are you doing?
Great. It's been a week of dusting off all the 55 gear, getting the tops out, looking at the 55 whiskey and everything. So let's hope we're not disappointed.
Sounds a bit like Jermaine Defoe with his 55 merchandise, doesn't it?
No kidding.
Folks, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Tonight is a Q&A style, but I thought I'd throw a wee twist. And so, as you know, rumours are rife. Gerrard is in talks to rejoin Rangers for a second stint as manager. But we need backroom staff. We need guys behind them, a good coaching team, guys that can do the work on the training pitch to the players whenever the manager can't do it all himself. He needs that helping hand. So I have plucked out my head 3 different combinations of coaches, ex-players, a bit of this, a bit of that. We'll go through each one here. I did plan doing a wee YouTube poll, but YouTube's not letting me in to do it, so we'll just need to use the comments as best we can. So let's say it's a Q&A style as well. So if you've any questions, get them in, and I'll get them up on the screen, and we'll chat as best we can. Stevie, I'll come to you first then, just in terms of, it's been a quite a quick week in terms of, obviously, he who shall not be named has left, and then obviously the Gerrard thing has basically just took off like a rocket. What's your initial feelings on the situation itself?
Delighted, mate. I mean, I'm so happy that it's finally happened. I would have preferred it a month ago, end of August, start of September. I think that was the perfect time. Yep. But ultimately, it's a month in the line. So, yeah, I'm not kidding. Like, Sunday night was the best I've slept in about 3 months. Genuinely, it was like a weight off my mind. It really was. It was such a difference. I'm sure a lot of you felt the same. But yeah, I would have loved Gerrard back. I think in pods in the summer. Even last year, but I was thinking I'd done one last Halloween when we were talking about like potentially Clement leaving. Then who do I have back? And I was really keen for Gerrard at that point, minus Beale. So I think we're finally getting my wish. But yeah, been buzzing all week. Like, we've been quite euphoric the last few days. Just the news that Gerrard is going to come back, looking likely, and the names that are getting mentioned as well. We staff, they're all kind of proven winners. Got a good knowledge of the Scottish game as well. Most of them. It's ticking a lot of boxes for me. But yeah, really happy with the outcome and how it's progressed, and just get it over the line, and then we'll go for there. But yeah, it's definitely heading in the right direction for me.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's there's definitely been a shift, I think, in the mood online. Although it's majority of it is positive, and it is want to get behind Gerrard. There is still the few that remain to be sort of won over, which I can understand.
Can I just quickly come back on that, mate? See, to be fair, right? I was thinking there's probably a kind of vocal minority who really are against Gerrard, which that's up to them. But Sunday, when he shall not be named left, I think that's the only time in my living memory that Rangers fans have actually agreed universally on something. So we can thank him for that. We can thank Russell Martin for bringing us all together to agree on one thing that he had to go. And now this is kind of back to normal. Rangers fans, most of us are for Gerrard, a few's against. That to me is normal service. It's a good debate, but yeah, to me it's great news.
Billy, then yourself, just your thoughts on sort of the last couple of days and the way things looks to be heading.
For me, Gerrard was the strongest candidate of the final 3 last time round. None of them are flawless. They've all got they all had weaknesses, and Gerrard he's got questions to answer. Has he still got the fire he had first time round? Has he still got a winner's mentality? He's had 2 unsuccessful stints. He's gone and followed the money for a bit, which no one would blame him for, but it doesn't tell you whether or not he's still the guy who came here first time round. He might not need to be. But I was thinking about this going, that you get older and you still have the fire in the belly, but you don't need to be absolutely a maniac about it. I'm sure a lot of the time when Watty and Archie Knox were growling at players, their heart rate was a steady 40 or something like that, but they were acting like they were going nuts. So like, I don't think Gerrard, he can trade off maybe a little of that sort of youthful exuberance and obsession for maybe a wee bit of experience. He's not without questions to answer, not least one of the ones we'll hopefully get to tonight in your chat, talk about the management team and who's going to fill the gaps. For me, this is where the 49ers are going to have to start earning some credibility, because they have been behind the Rangers' support on the curve on this the whole way through. Everything we had as a reservation about Russell Martin came to pass. We were all saying he needed to go a month ago, and they waited a month. So they actually need to do some work and get the right team in and back them to get our credibility back, because at the moment, genuinely, with the managers being concerned, the Rangers support have known a lot more about this than the 49ers group have, and they're supposed to be the data guys, they're supposed to be the business guys and the winners, so they need to start doing that with the next appointment.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you see they definitely have clawed back a bit of credibility, I think, particularly with the statement that came out, and they put their hands up and they owned up, obviously, it just didn't work. It just didn't work as much as we all wanted it to. You know, the guy did start. I think he started 2-0 down. I think, you know, before he was in the door, you know, it was always an uphill struggle. And it's just one that just couldn't get it over the line, could they? Just couldn't get it to work at all. And we are where we are. It's another October. It's another managerial sacking. You know, we're back to square one again, but I think this time, like, the guy they're bringing in he just gets this, and he just understands this football club. He understands the fans, and if he can take an ounce of what he had when he first came here and use the experience he's got in the last couple of years, I think we're going to get a more complete manager, I think. From that experience, because obviously, you know, he went down to the big Premier League and he was the first player he bought was a £25 million player, and you could kind of understand, right, he's moving up a level in terms of the player caliber of player he's getting to buy, the caliber of player he's getting to manage. You know, it's just need to understand where we are in the pecking order in terms of that. But he's been there, he's done that now, so, you know, he's going to come back with, I think, new ideas and a probably a new outlook on things as well. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Stevie, just then, I don't know if you picked up on what he said on that Rio Ferdinand interview. He was talking about how he needed to get the right staff in to sort of plug the gaps and his knowledge and his coaching. Do you think he's going to do that, considering the previous spell he had? Do you think he's got much to plug from the previous spell they had with us? Do you know if that makes sense?
I think he gets something very similar to what he had before. Obviously, mine is Beale. We don't want him coming back, but although I've seen a few people say that they would, but not for me. But yeah, even if he's got, you know, the likes of Jermaine Defoe, Stephen Davis, they're talking about obviously Steve Holland. He'd be a tremendous appointment. What an assistant he would be. You know, just for somebody to kind of lean on. That's a real experienced guy to have in the background. And one guy that I keep banging this drum, but I'd love to see Kevin Thompson involved at some level. You know, he knows Rangers. We've had him on these pods, and he's obviously in the past he was talking about his time there, and obviously had Walter as a manager, but you also had guys like Sandy Jardine around the place, you know, just guys that know the club, know the standards that's required. So I'd really like Kevin Thompson to be in there at some point, just, you know, kind of keeping those standards like maintained and reminding players what it takes, because clearly, you know, you look at the last guy who's just left, there was nothing even close to that. The fact they let him go, I think in the summer kind of speaks volumes to me. But yeah, I think the fact that Gerrard's got the experience of being in Scotland before, you know, that's also key for me. And if he's getting guys in the staff who've played there as well, that's a big part of it. Can I just touch a wee bit back? Somebody mentioned like how he done at Villa. And people say, oh, he failed at Villa and he failed in Saudi. Like, every single manager fails at some point. You know what I mean? Like, that's, no manager has a perfect record. Everybody fails, and that's when you really learn. You actually learn from their failures and actually improve yourself. Walter Smith failed. Like, he never done well at Everton. He did okay for a while, but, you know, it went wrong. But he improved. He ended up going to Man United. assistant to Ferguson for a while. You know, he improved. He came back a better manager for Scotland and then Rangers. So there's nothing to say that Gerrard isn't going to be a better manager this time. I know it's the second time around, but the knowledge that he's got and the experience he's gained, I think it can only be positive. But to circle all the way back to your question, yeah, I think he's got enough about him to have a kind of similar coaching staff to what we had before, and it should hopefully hit the ground running. We note of caution, when he took over the last time, he was in the door at the end of May. The season had just finished and he was straight in there. So he had the entire summer to basically prepare and give him the proper pre-season. This time he's coming in mid-October and it's going to be totally different. You know, he's inheriting a squad which is a better standard of player than what he had the last time, but who knows the state of their fitness, you know, their morale and everything else. It's a far more difficult time to take over just now, and you can't do a pre-season in October with the games coming thick and fast. So just a wee note of caution. If it doesn't go quite as planned straight away, I wouldn't be surprised at that, because he's got a big job to kind of lift the players to the standards that he expects and we expect.
Yeah, interesting you say that, Billy. Whenever he did come in, I know he obviously brought in Michael Beale and stuff like that, and a totally different coaching staff, but the team that he inherited at the time was bonkers to compare. You know, that team that he inherited, and then, you know, the European sort of run that we went on that first season with him. Considering he did that, I think that, you know, do you think he'd be able to do something similar with what we have at the moment? Is what we have now better than what we had when he first took over initially, with your teams like, you know, Andy Halliday, Jason Holt, Bates, Alnwick, you know, these kind of guys?
Yeah, it's funny. Someone was going through the team that played in the final, the 5-5 game with Hibs, where wee Lenny did his aeroplane thing and celebrated a draw because he's a pure winner. And you look at that team, and it was kind of like eye-opening to remember like what we were working with just before Gerrard came in. Let's see the saying, it's a very sort of different. It's a very different situation, but I can't help think that there's one of the things that I really loved during the Gerrard era was he did this thing that was almost like magic that I hadn't seen in years, where he improved individual players. Like almost every single player improved. Now that will come back to your question, talk about, you know, some of that might have been Beale, for example, but I actually saw players come to Rangers and not just stagnate or get worse, which we'd been used to sadly under Ali and other regimes, but we'd actually seen players improve. I can't help but think that I think we've got a higher calibre of player in. Whether the balance is right, I wouldn't say no to a younger Andy Halliday, and, you know, like in and around the squad. Whether the balance is right, I don't know, but I look at that team under Russell Martin and they look paralysed with overcoaching. They look bamboozled. And one of the things that Russell Martin showed in terms of like his inexperience or just lack of ability as a manager, he came in and he didn't try and phase in a way of winning while building his style of play. He just wanted to get the style of play in, and you know, the consequences would follow. And that was just bad decision making. I feel like any decent manager coming in now is going to look at these players and go, what they need initially is a simplified system and to be told to do what they're good at. Let Oliver Antman do what he's good at without having to think. Let them get on the pitch with a plan, but don't have the manager screaming at them that they're out of position before kickoff, which was happening with Russell Martin. So I can't help but think a lot of these young players have come in and been overburdened with not just expectation, but over coaching and a system that either didn't work or just wasn't right. And it just seems like if you get Gerrard, he's a lot of things. As a manager, he seems to have, for want of a better term, like street smarts. He always talked to us as a support like we were intelligent, and he always kind of was able to cut to the chase and things. And I can't help but think Gerrard's going to look at that squad and say, wherever we want to be in a year or 18 months' time, just now these players need liberated, they need their heads up, they need to build confidence. So let them do what they're good at. Find a system that lets them play off the cuff, on instinct, quickly, instead of this plodding, laboured attempt to find El Dorado that was never going to happen under Russell Martin. So I think Stevie G can get like a proper bounce out of this team. Might take a week or two, but But yeah, I don't doubt he can, and I think we have got a better squad now. I just think we do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that speaks for itself. Looking then at the coaching team, so I'm going to go. I'll do my first. I picked three. I picked three threes essentially. So the first one I have went with Gary McAllister, Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson. The second one is Michael Beale, Jermaine Defoe, and Alan McGregor. And then the third trio, I went for Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, and Peter Lovenkrands. All a range of experience, whether it be youth level, first team manager, coach, you name it. So we'll go with the first one, which is obviously we're going back a bit. So we're going Gary McAllister, been here before, knows the score. Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson. Stevie, your thoughts on my first potential lineup for Gerrard here?
That's the dream team, mate. That's my first, second, and third choice right there. Adding Jermaine Defoe and Steve Holland, and we're cooking with gas. Yeah, that's ideal. Like, you've got that experience. They've already been here. They know the league. They know the demands, the physicality, everything that's required to be at Rangers. And obviously, you know, they've had success. Gerrard's won the league. He's built a team to nothing previously. Made us competitive in Europe. Dominated all fun games, went to Parkhead and won. You know, to me, Gerrard ticks every single box that you want for a Rangers manager. And Kevin Thompson, on the flip side of the coin, I know it was only Kelty Hearts, but he's been the manager for one season and he won the league. You know, contrast that with Barry Ferguson, who got the gig for a few months last season. Pretty dreadful record at Alloa and Clyde. You know, this guy's actually proven it. So yeah, that to me, that just kind of rings through. That'd be like a really stellar lineup for me. That's a proper coaching staff right there. I know leaders as well. You know, all kind of captain material as players. And that's essentially what, to me, that's what Gerrard does. He's a leader of men. He inspires everybody, inspires the players, the fans. I go back to like his first pre-season. I remember seeing like stills on the website or the Facebook page of Rangers, and it was I think it was Halliday, Windass, and a few others, and they looked. I think it was like the first or second day of training in pre-season, and they looked like they were dying. Like, when they looked in so much pain, I was like, that's what I want to see. You know, absolutely put them through the ringer. And Gerrard over time, you know, even going to Seville, you think of that season. I know it was Gio that guided us there, but so many late goals and just Rangers never stopped. And that to me was Gerrard's regime that got those players in that kind of brilliant state of fitness. So yeah, Jock, that right now I have to look at the other two, but that's my top pick right there, mate.
So you're picking the first one then.
Absolutely.
Billy, just your thoughts on then. So Gary McAllister, Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson as a potential trio to help.
Well, I've got to say, I would be happy with all three of them at Rangers. However, there's a big question mark that none of us really know the answer to, but it's kind of been alluded that Beale was a great on the grass coach and seemed to be taking team meetings and involved in a lot of the tactical setup of the team. I will, like, you know, Stephen Davis is a Rangers legend for me. I always used to get goosebumps going through Cullybackey on the train because it's the most Irish sounding town ever, and it's where Stephen Davis is from. And the time I actually got to go there when I was visiting family, and we ended up in Cullybackey, which, spoiler alert, quite a staunch wee part of the world. It is. It just made me happy to be there because I thought, this is where Stephen Davis is from. So I would love to have Stephen Davis at the club. Would love to have Kevin Thompson at the club. Gary McAllister, you know, he's been there before and been part of a successful team. What I wonder is, do we need someone a bit more experienced? In addition to that, not instead of any of those guys, but in addition to that, do we need someone who can do the on-the-grass stuff at the level we had before? Maybe Stephen Davis can, maybe Kevin Thompson can. They just, I don't know the answer to that. I know, like KT's had experience as a manager and had pretty solid results in certain roles. I just don't know if there's still a missing piece with that trio. Definitely have them in, like Katie and Davis, in terms of like the attitude, the mentality, what it is to be Rangers men and what it is to play for Rangers. Absolutely. Same with Gary McAllister. You know, he's been there as Gerrard's right hand man, and you know, maybe he's the mood guy. Maybe he is the guy that, you know, like when Gerrard's scaring everybody, Gary McAllister's the guy that puts the arm around him. Whatever it was, that worked. So yeah, those three in the door, no problem for me. But I still have a question about that. There might be a missing part there.
Yeah, well, see, I only picked the three, so that's, you know, I'd imagine there'll be more than three come in. I know he did have quite a team before he left, because I was reading up on it. I think there was 5 or 6 of them. I think there was one that's went to him everywhere he's went. Tom, somebody, I can't remember.
Culshaw and Milsom are Culshaw and Milsom are the two that seem to be linked as well. Yeah,
that's it. That's the two that's went everywhere with him. So who knows? Who knows? For me personally, yeah, I would take all three. I think they're, you know, it's a strong, staunch. Knows the club, knows what's needed, knows the demands. I've been there, done that, and you know, they all talk highly about the club, and I think it's just the lift that I think the players need as well as the fans, as a trio like that to come in beside Gerrard and just get back to the basics and get us up and running again. So my second trio then, this is a bit of the controversial one because has Michael Beale, Jermaine Defoe and Al McGregor, so it's kind of a mixed bag for some of us. Billy, I'll come back to you in this one then. Just your thoughts on the second trio there, Beale, Defoe and McGregor.
Well, I think Defoe, if Gerrard's coming along, Defoe is either coming with him or is certainly angling for a position, and his love of the club is clear. He's got that superstar status. You wouldn't say no to him coaching the strikers. He did an awfully good job on settling. You know, peak Alfie was when Jermaine Defoe arrived and got his head settled and got him focused. So as a striking coach alone, I would be open to that. McGregor, I'm not sure if he wasn't just maybe helping us out, you know, like last season because he's a Rangers man. So I'm not sure. And someone was saying Sal Bibble's kind of still around, so there's maybe not a position for him. Michael Beale. That's the question. If you could put Michael Beale's brain in a jar and have it do the coaching and stuff, maybe. But I'm sorry, the way he lobbied for the job when Gio was still in place was pretty slimy in my estimation. And he has just told a lot of porky pies since he left. You know, he's tried to rewrite history about what he inherited. This is actually the sad thing about Michael Beale and his unsilenceable mouth, is that if he'd actually left Rangers and just you know, like taking his dibs and kind of going, okay, it didn't work out, you know, I'm going to kind of like, you know, try and go again and build my career. But he tried to rewrite history. That for me is another thing that I find quite difficult to get over. He wasn't honest about his failings. He wasn't honest about the situation. He kind of fibbed, to be honest. And for me, I find that very difficult to respect. I would struggle to have him around. If Steven Gerrard wants him around, I suspect like he'll get him. But I do wonder, because from what I heard in the interview, he kind of alluded that it wouldn't be exactly the same team as before. And Beale did leave when he was at Villa. So Beale showed ambition, nothing wrong with that. But Steven Gerrard's probably thought, right, you've shown ambition, you've gone on. Are you the guy I want to come back into that role? Will you be off again? Because, you know, like Michael Beale doesn't seem like a guy that will stick around if he gets a better offer, to be honest. So, yeah, Michael Beale, if I never had to listen to him again, and like I say, you could just have an algorithm of Michael Beale taking coaching and stuff. But that's tricky. I wouldn't be keen on him coming back in, but if Steven Gerrard wants to expend some of the collateral and the goodwill that he's got with the fans just now, and I think Jackson Bowe is really going after the Stevie G crew tonight. Are you not allowed to say bad things about Gerrard here? Obviously, you are, Jackson. You've been absolutely ripping in them for the last 15 minutes. So you just happen to be in the minority at the moment, that's all. So yeah, if Stevie G wants to expend some of his goodwill on bringing Michael Beale in, he'll probably get away with it. But I think there'll be murmurs and grumbles at the thought of him being back, and I would certainly be one of the grumblers.
What about then Defoe? Just obviously he's in line now, as we see. Billy, just would you think you have more to add? Obviously, from the time he was here previously, and then obviously he was angling. I think every TV interview he did in the last 3 days, he was angling about coming back here.
I mean, it's that thing again. I don't know if he wants to be a coach. I mean, I know he was at Spurs and he did the under-18s for about 18 months, and then left apparently to pursue managerial ambitions. So presumably he wants to be a manager. To me, I don't know what his thoughts are, but I certainly on this, I would have him in as a specialist on the striking side of things. Steven Gerrard will have a better idea where Jermaine Defoe's at in terms of his coaching ability. I know he's got qualifications now, etc. Again, is he a guy that maybe could learn from a slightly more experienced on the grass coach, or does he want to be the guy taking? I mean, I really like Jermaine Defoe, and I think he adds a bit of glamour. I think that if you're going to have a Defoe, this is where I'm going to start cross-pollinating with your kind of trios here. I think if you're going to have the sort of the star value of a Jermaine Defoe, you definitely need Kevin Thompson skulking about the place, growling at people about standards as well. Not that there are different ways of motivating people. I think for a lot of young players, they'd look at Jermaine Defoe, cool guy, nice guy, great career, look what he's done, and they would look up to that. Equally, I think like Kevin Thompson sort of snapping at your ankles would not be a bad combination. But definitely, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if Jermaine Defoe is reckless enough to be touting himself for a role at Rangers without maybe having had a wee bit of a conversation with Steven Gerrard. So it doesn't seem like he does his job application on Insta or the socials. But I have enjoyed seeing the 55 glass and the way other people top and everything. So I think if Steven Gerrard's coming in, I'd be pretty surprised if Jermaine Defoe wasn't along with him.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stevie. Your thoughts on then the trio of Beale, Defoe, and McGregor?
Beale, no chance. Leave that there. He's in the past. McGregor, hero, legend, great player. But no, the goalkeeping coach is still in place, so again, probably not. And Defoe, 100%. He's, I think Billy's mentioned Kevin Thompson and how he'd be right at the players. But I think Jermaine Defoe, I think he had a lot of steel about him as well. You don't play for the clubs he's played for and came through the managers he's played for and not be a proper character, like a real tough wee guy. So I'm pretty sure his standards are right up there as well. So yeah, definitely want to see Jermaine Defoe in there, and he really seemed to take to the club. He loved his time at Rangers. So yeah, I think he ticks out of those three. Definitely Jermaine Defoe. He's a proper Rangers guy right there. And obviously, one of the best strikers to come to England in the last 20-25 years. So having that experience and knowledge to coach do you know what? Register him as a player. I'd play him. He's only 42 or 43. He'd probably still score a few goals if we're struggling, which we are. So yeah, who knows? Maybe see Jermaine back on the pitch.
Yep, I can't disagree with anything you guys are saying. Like I say, I picked this was the divisive one, obviously because of the main man at the front of it. It was Beale, and obviously the history he has with us, and then obviously all the stuff that's come out after it with this mad Twitter account they had, and it's just nuts at the end of the day. But yeah, like as Billy says, you probably would likely to try and cherry pick from one group to another group and just try and mesh it all together. And McGregor, like club legends, what can you say? If anybody's going to push wisdom down to the next generation, it's going to be somebody like Alan McGregor, because he was just larger than life, wasn't he? And he was just incredible goalkeeper. The third trio then, Stevie, I'll stick with you then, is obviously Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, and Peter Lovenkrands. I seen in the chat there, I think Peter Lovenkrands has an ambassador role for the club. I wasn't aware of that. It was news to me. But again, still three people well involved with the club, and as recently, obviously, as Neil McCann and Barry Ferguson were up until May. Just your thoughts on those three?
Definite note for Barry. Again, a legendary player, like a real driving force for Rangers, a big hero for me. But as a manager, no, not a chance. I wouldn't have him back. He's in the press for the whatever paper he's writing for. It's like rent a quote Barry. You know, he just seems to like take pot shots at us. Has done even before he got the gig. Didn't really handle himself well towards the end of last season. So no, almost similar to Beale, the way he's kind of conducted himself. I wouldn't have him back in that capacity. No, as a coach. Neil McCann, I think he always comes across pretty well in interviews. Whenever you see him on RTV or whatever in Scotland games, seems quite knowledgeable. Yeah, maybe. But the guys we've mentioned, if we're going for a Scot, circle back to Kevin Thompson again. And Peter Lovencroft, as you said, he's quite good in the studio. I think he comes across quite well, but I don't think he's really want to be a coach going forward. Great player again. Well, he was a great player usually for the last 2 months every season. His contract was running down, but yeah, out of the three choices, that's kind of like my third choice. I would look at the other two before that one.
Billy, just your thoughts then on the three. Interesting that obviously with Ferguson and yeah, his social media and his press duties related, he didn't. It wasn't the worst. Let's face it, it wasn't the worst spell. It was chaotic and it was heart attack material whenever you're 2-0 down, but we won 4-3 or we won 4-2, and but he still has. I think he still would have something to offer. You don't think?
I've got to say, weirdly, I think the third trio is the dream team. If you're looking for a pundit panel on RTV, if you want to sit and listen to some quality insight and some straight talking, like Barry's good for that. McCann's always very insightful in a way where actually you kind of feel a bit smarter about the game listening to him. And Lovencroft seems like a decent guy. I'm kind of the same with Stevie. I think I think the Barry Ferguson experiment last season was a bit of a sort of 50-50. I think he did possibly as well as he could have. It could have been an absolute car crash, but he got the win at Celtic Park, and that is like that's they're now feeling that. They're now feeling this sort of record of not having much success against us, and we've got that millstone from around our neck. He did the number on Hosey, although admittedly, we only squeaked through after that. So I think you look at the home record, you look at what happened, and basically, like a lot of pundits, and this is no shade on the team that came in. They're good Rangers guys. They did their best and they did a solid job. But a lot of pundits talk the talk when they're watching from the outside. And then they get in and they're pure going to give everyone the rally call and tell them what it is to be a Rangers player. And basically, the team sort of kind of reverted to what had happened before they came in. So really, they didn't make a massive difference. They got a couple of flagship results. And what I will say is Barry Ferguson, 100 times smarter and more looking like a Rangers manager in the touchline than Russell Martin ever was. And that doesn't count for much, but it was something. Barry stepped up at a time when he had a lot to lose and we were not in a great place and we needed a fillip, and he did it. So I've got to be honest, I'm the same as Stevie. I could do without his media work. I don't like some of the contacts he has with potentially the likes of Keith Jackson and stuff like that. But when we needed him, he was there. And I worried that the Barry era might be an absolute bin fire, and it wasn't. He actually carried himself with a lot more media savviness than I maybe expected. So I would listen to them talk about football any day of the week. I would love to see them on RTV. I wouldn't want them running the team. What I would say is, as an outside shout, when we're talking about McGregor, any chance in bringing him back as comms officer? Can you imagine the press conferences and dealing with the Scottish press? It would just be one glowering meme after another. And if you put clips together of some of his best interviews, I'd say bring McGregor back for that. If the 49ers are listening, that's the guy you want dealing with the Scottish media. That would just be unmissable. But as part of the part of the team. No, the same as the other guys that came in. They did us a great turn last season. They took a lot of heat, but they didn't show anything that suggested that they were the answer going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. They came in, took the reins, got some decent results, but it showed the frailties within the setup that, like you say, couldn't carry us over and couldn't take us on to where we need to go. It was just a do what you can and do as best you can until the end of the season, and they more than did that. I say the Fenerbahce away result was ridiculous, and obviously in a way I went at Parkhead as well as not to be frowned upon in this day and age, the last couple of years anyway. Go ahead, Stevie.
Sorry, mate. To give them their due, Raskin, how much did he improve when they were there? Raskin came into such a game under Ferguson, McCann, and Billy Dodds. He really did improve. So that was something. And just going back to Gerrard, I'm quite excited about how much he's going to improve our midfielders. You've already mentioned it before, Jock, about how much players improved. Sorry, it might have been you, Billy, about how much he actually improved players individually. There's enough talent there already that he can really bring them on. So that's something else I'm quite excited about with Gerrard.
Right, that's my 3 that I basically picked. Chat, I did try to get a poll running on YouTube, but I haven't got access to do it yet. So if you enjoyed it, go in the chat and just type 1, 2, or 3, and just let us know what your thoughts are on the 3 I've picked there. So you type 1 for Gary McAllister, Stephen Davis, Kevin Thompson, 2 for Michael Beale, Jermaine Defoe, Al McGregor, and then 3 for Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, and Peter Lovenkrands. And then that way we'll sort of have a rough idea where yous are all sitting at. While that's going on, I think what we are hearing is that Steve Holland, Jermaine Defoe, and I think Billy Reid are the rumoured potential candidates that are going to come in with Gerrard, essentially. Jermaine Defoe, obviously, we've discussed, we know. Billy Reid, I had to actually look up, but the Scottish coach has had stints as the first team manager down in England. Not sure, Stevie or Billy, and you guys know anything about him? Stevie?
Was he used to be, I could be off, he used to be the Hamilton gaffer at one point.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a solid coach. I mean, that to me, him and Holland, that's real experience. And Billy, he's obviously the Scottish part of that, that unit. And I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm quite happy with that, to be fair. Nobody's got to know our game better than what he does. So that's a really sound appointment to me. And obviously Steve Holland, he's been assistant to Jose Mourinho, Gus Hiddink, Conte, I think, probably another Chelsea manager I'm forgetting him, but he's worked with the best, and Gareth Southgate. But I mean, to be fair, I won't hold that against him. There's enough there to say this is that looks like a really good DNA. That kind of, you've got Gerrard at the top, and you've got this kind of in the background. Yeah, I like the sounds of that. I don't know about yourselves. What are you, Billy?
I do too, actually. I've got to say, what it sounds like is that Steven Gerrard has been thinking seriously about this for a wee while, because Billy Reid, he did an awfully good job at Hamilton, and I remember him, like, he did an interview with I think he did an interview with Rangers fan media, like it might have been Heart and Hand, at a time when other Scottish coaches would tend not to have anything to do with Rangers or Rangers. So I've got this suspicion that he might be a bear as well. Because I'm sure he did. And I remember listening to the interview with presumably Heart and Hand and thinking he comes across really well. He sounds smart. He knows. He just seemed like a down-to-earth guy who knew football, and he did a good job at Hamilton Accies. And that's the kind of thinking that Steven Gerrard here seems plugged in. That just, to me, I didn't, it's not a name that I was thinking of, but as soon as it popped up, it was like, oh, he's serious about this. And it's the kind of thing that we were talking about earlier with Stephen Davis he's a guy maybe to have as part of the team, but he doesn't have the experience that Billy Reid has, years of actually coaching in the SPFL. Steve Holland, obviously, more of the sort of the English connection there, but again, at a level that it seems like Gerard's contacts are potentially paying off. I'm genuinely quite impressed with that. That would be a team I'd be more than happy with. And then obviously, if he wants to pick maybe 2 or 3 from the names that you've come up with tonight, Jock, that would be great. But this is. I don't think it's easy to get carried away, but this is what it felt like a wee bit last time around. It felt like Gerard was a man with a plan. He wasn't drifting in and saying, "I'll see who's available." It sounds like I was hearing that when they did the interviews for the job before Russell Martin got it, Stephen Gerrard was the guy saying, when all the interviews were dragging on and things didn't seem to be going anywhere and we wondered what was happening, and Russell Martin was going through 7 interviews, which, don't know about you, but I used to work in recruitment. I've never known a process where the outstanding candidate required 7 interviews. But Gerrard seemed to be saying, look, if you want me, you're going to need to act now, because here's when the European qualifiers are. Here's what I need to do. Here's what I need to get in. Here's the dates I need to hit in terms of like training and fitness and getting players knitted. So he was thinking about it seriously then. And I've got to be honest, like Billy Reid and Steve Holland, this seems like a man with a plan again. And I'm quite excited by that.
100%.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking from it, is that, he's weighed and he's got the right people. And he said that in that Rio Ferdinand interview, he wanted to get the right team behind him for when he goes into his next job. And I think you're right. I think this has probably been building up to this. He's probably just been trying to get, obviously see if these people become available. And your guy Holland there, just looking at his Wikipedia here, is Chelsea, Antonio Conte, Jose Mourinho, Gus Hiddink, obviously Di Matteo, Benitez, Villas Boas, the who's who of the Premier League essentially in terms of Chelsea, and then obviously the international experience he's got and getting to European finals and World Cup semi-finals and stuff. That kind of experience is not to be frowned upon, especially coming into our league, because that should be. He should be walking into a Premiership team, essentially, really, for just on his CV alone. But if we can get him in the door up here, I think he's only going to help Gerrard in long term. He's certainly. I've heard the name, but I didn't realise he'd been around as long in the Premier League. So that level of experience is, there's not many about have that on their CV, that's for sure.
I think he's quite a strong-willed guy as well, because he's the one that Ben White, how he got chucked to the England squad.
Yes,
I think it was Steve Holland that basically. I think the story goes that he basically just got him told one day in terms you need to be better. He never liked it. I was like, right, you're out. So yeah, there's definitely Billy Reid as well. I mean, neither of those 2 guys got to take any nonsense, so they look like strong appointments to me.
Chat. Any questions then? I know it's a Q&A, and I kind of hogged it with my potential managerial candidates and potential coaches that's going to come in under Gerrard. Any questions? Get them fired in. There was 5 journal memberships gifted there by Martin, so thanks to Martin for that. It's always good to see sharing amongst those in the podcast and that. Folks on X and YouTube, if you're not subscribed, please hit the like and subscribe button as well for us, because we're trying to grow this channel as best we can. Obviously now we're flying under the wing of Gerrard. Hopefully by this time tomorrow night we'll have a good breaking podcast for you, all being well. And those on X as well, there's 500 of you. Head over to YouTube and just give us a wee like, subscribe. It helps the channel massively. It helps us guys keep pushing out the content for you. Billy, is there anybody else, or is there any other areas you think that we need to focus on in terms of appointments? is there one particular area you think that we really need to focus on going forward?
You'd asked me that 5 minutes ago. I'd have circled back to the Beale-shaped hole, which is quite an interesting shaped hole on the pitch in terms of like coaching. But that possibly breaking news with Billy Reid and Steve Holland, to be honest. I'm getting proper get it done vibes just now. I would say if those are the guys he's looking at and he's spoken to them and they do actually come in, I would say them. Pick a couple of the guys, Kevin Thompson, Stephen Davis. The proverbial Rangers man. Jermaine Defoe potentially as a specialist coach for the front players. And to be honest, that's starting to look like the A team. That's starting to look like what we need. I could, for the sake of content, I could try and sort of come up with something. But I'll be honest, like that's looking pretty good. And someone had been asking earlier on if I thought, I think Andrew was trying to play devil's dick advocate and was setting us up there. Are you saying Jermaine Defoe doesn't get the standards at Rangers? For the avoidance of doubt, yeah, he definitely gets the standards. I'm just saying. Some guys set the standards by being cool and really good at football. That's Jermaine Defoe. Some players set the standards by biting your ankles and sort of like growling, and that seems like Kevin Thompson a wee bit, not in a bad way, in a good Scottish DNA sort of way where you need a mix of everything. You can't just have Scottish coaches and Scottish players in the modern world, but equally. It's good to have people who've come from the EPL. Jermaine Defoe can I'm sure can tell some really interesting stories about the level that Lights are Raskin and these guys want to go to. And if that inspires players, then great. But just now, it's funny looking at Steve Holland and Billy Reid. It's almost as if Steven Gerrard knows more about football than me and has got a better contact book, and that's come as a bit of a revelation. I'm going to need to have a wee bit of a sit down, but if that happens, I'm like I say, I'm now. I was thinking it might be Monday before we hear something. I'm now like you, Jock. I'm really hoping it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm chapping at the bit here. Stevie, any particular area you think there should be put on whenever the new management team comes in?
I mean, I think what they're doing just now is, getting the right guy in charge and getting the right coaches in place. That's key because as we've kind of covered, the squad has been beefed up a lot. And it's hitting the ground running. We've got Old Firm semi-final 3 weeks on Sunday, which is huge. We've still, I know it's been a terrible start to the season, but we're only, 9 points behind. Just try and win the first maybe 3 or 4 or 5 games. That's the focus. Just get in and start winning consistently. Yeah. But that coaching staff, Gerrard, and them, I mean, this is going to sound random, right? But I'm a big James Bond fan, and the best James Bonds are the ones you look at and think, aye, they can go into a fight and just batter everybody in their way. Gerrard's like that. Walker was like that. Souness was like that. You know what I mean? These are guys that you kind of think, aye, they're leaders. So that's totally random, but yeah, I think they're getting this right, and with the experience he's getting backed up by with Holland, Billy Reid, potentially Jermaine Defoe, Kevin Thompson. It looks like a good structure. But yeah, I just really want to see them, having that desire. It's going to be difficult the first few weeks because obviously very early days. But just getting them organised, getting them competitive. When Walker came back for his second spell after Le Guen, it was just a case of really tightening things up, making them difficult to beat, and using the talent that was there. And I think Gerrard can get a lot more out of this squad. Because every time I watched Rangers this season, I thought, we are so less than the sum of our parts. We should be so much better. A lot of that will come down to fitness. But, yeah, I think this is really, this is the start. It should have been 3 or 4 months ago. But now we're basically starting again. But with the right guys in place, it's going to build the proper foundations. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to be finally optimistic about.
A good analogy about Bond, but you bear in mind Walter Smith had Souness in front of him, and then behind him he had Archie Knox. Three boys you don't want to mess with. Big shout out to Martin, who has kindly donated £5, and I'm probably 99% certain that Scotty's already got that spent because he's on holiday and it's probably on a couple of cocktails. Billy, I'll come to you then. He's asking here if Gerrard is confirmed, who do you believe will be the out the door player wise? My biggest sort of, what I want the most from Gerrard is to come in here straight away and find out who's with him and who's not with him, and I think he will do that because he done it quite quickly in his first stint, and he got a core group of players that were with him, and those were the core group of players for the team. You're like Arfield, Jack. I had Halliday at one point as well. Do you think there's somebody in there that won't meet those standards and won't rise to the occasion for him?
Well, this is going to be very interesting. Just to touch on Stevie's Bond analogy, which I thought was bang on, actually. Is it any coincidence that Russell Martin and Roger Moore have got the same initials? I don't think so. That tells you all you need to know. No one's running through a brick wall for Roger Moore, lovely guy though he was. In terms of who's going to be out, I'm not sure. I think this is where I think you'll see Steven Gerrard and experienced coaches do their thing. They don't have a pre-season, like you mentioned earlier, Joe. They don't have a pre-season. They don't have a chance to assess and get things in place the way they did first time round. It's a different project. It's like trying to do like changing the oil in your car while you're still driving down the motorway. So they're going to have to call canny a wee bit. What I do think is Steven Gerrard will make his mind up. Players might not find out to January who he fancies and who he doesn't fancy. He won't be daft enough to cold shoulder people, like the way maybe Russell Martin fell into a wee bit, with like Tavernier and Raskin. Famously, I think it was like was it Greg Stewart that Steven Gerrard liked but just never fancied as a player. Didn't bomb him out, but basically had him in and around the team and let him get some minutes during 55. I think Gerrard will expect players to step up. He'll expect to see an improvement in performance, but he'll also see it as his responsibility to liberate these players. I think there's a dual thing going on here where the players are going to go, right, okay, we're maybe not burdened by this tactical macrame that kind of like Russell Martin get everyone entangled in. Steven Gerrard's going to give them the chance to show what they can do, and he will make his mind up. And he will inspire them. And in January, if you're not doing it, whether that's Nicola Raskin or Diamandi or whoever, then I think you'll see players on their way, because that'll also be a way for him to send a message. He'll come in, he'll give everybody a lift, he'll give everybody a chance. But then in January, I don't think it does any harm to put the frighteners on a little bit. I don't think it does any harm, if we get to January and Raskin's not signing a deal and he's maybe not up to kind of what he could do, that we punt him, and it shows that he's serious about this, because he's going to outlast players. In terms of who could get bombed out just now, I mean, I would actually be very hesitant to write anyone off. You're looking at likes of Max Aarons, who looks like in January he could be gone because he sounds like he knows he's in the wrong movie. But I wouldn't be writing anybody off, because they've come into a situation where the manager has not been very good. The whole team has looked constipated. The style of play has been terrible. Nobody has got better. The players that came in, famously, Antman came in and looked like a flying machine until Russell Martin got in his head, and then he kind of drifted onto the bench. So I think Steven Gerrard will, if you're asking who might go, it wouldn't surprise me if in January Aarons, maybe even Mikey Moore went. But equally, wouldn't surprise me if Steven Gerrard come in and like Steven Gerrard and Jermaine Defoe get in about Mikey Moore and suddenly get a tune out of him. So I think that this is the great thing about this situation. I think we have taken something that felt like we were in a tailspin, and we've now got possibilities. Players have got the possibility to turn their career around at Rangers, and they've got a successful manager hopefully coming in, a good team coming in, guys that will improve them. The likes of Steve Holland that could improve them to EPL level, which is what Raskin and others want. So I could pick a name like Aarons, and he would be the one. If you're asking me to bet the mortgage, it would be like Aarons would be one of the guys I would expect to go in January. But I think Steven Gerrard. Remember the story when he came in and like early on, Ryan Jack just became one of his guys because in training he looked at the team in training and he went, he gets it. Well, Rangers players, that squad have got the chance to show Steven Gerrard they get it. And it'll be up to them whether they leave or not. So at the moment, the door's open.
Stevie, do you think Gerrard could bring in some players that aren't under contract with anybody, free agents?
I've got the freebies list at my fingertips, to be honest, mate. Who's out there? I think he's going to look for I think Gerrard's got a profile of player. I think one of the first things he'll do is get a physical left back. McGowan's a good player. I like him, but he's a kid. He's 19. He's not going to play 50 games for us. I know Cornelius has played there at the weekend and done really well, to be fair to him. But I think he's going to go, for a few athletes. Joe Aribos, Frank Camara. There's a lot of guys out there that he signed previously. I think it'll be similar type guys he's going to go for this time that are going to really adapt to the league. Maybe even like another Scandinavian defender like Helander. Scandinavians always historically do well in Scotland. So I think you'd be looking at that. And come back to the question you asked Billy, it was almost the same three that I thought of. It was Aarons, Mikey Moore, and maybe Rothwell. I don't know if they've got a future under Gerrard. But everybody's got a clean slate. When a new manager comes in, they start again. So I wouldn't write anybody off. Need to see how they react. But knowing how Gerrard, what his demands are for players' fitness, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for Rothwell, to be fair. Hope he proves me wrong.
Billy, GT Hume's asking, do you think Gerrard could get a tune out of Rask and Rothwell partnership?
I mean, all things are possible. It's Schrodinger's midfield at the moment. What would be nice is to actually have a midfield, because I've been watching this season and it just feels like either we're going around the sides or there's massive holes for the opposition to play through. I think it's been a point that's been made in the comments, I think, by Shona McLean there, is that what we need to tighten up at the back and we need players to just be able to relax and do the instinctive things that got them to be elite level football players. What I would like to see, I'd actually like to see a midfield that helps that defence out, because that defence is not a league-winning defence. No chance and we've all seen the stats and how many chances we were conceding. To me, I didn't really pin that on the defence. I pinned that on Russell Martin's setup, because a lot of the time a chance is, a shot from 20 yards or a ball played in from 20 or 30 yards. And they were getting to it as basically, okay, have a run at our defence and see what you can do. Surprise, surprise, that happened to lead to a lot of chances. I'd like to see us going back to the way we were under Gerrard. I loved watching his teams control the pitch. It was almost like watching this rectangle of a football team move up and down. And, we might lose the ball. We might have an attack that we had to deal with, but we controlled the pitch. And I would love to see a midfield that, kind of like Shona was alluding to just now, actually almost tightens things up more, controls the game more, protects the defence, and lets the creative players actually express themselves and play with more instinct and show the things that got them where they are, and in time and through transfer windows build something else. But just a solid midfield. Raskin and Rothwell. Raskin, yeah. Rothwell, potentially, we saw glimpses in the last few matches that when you put him in a more forward-thinking role, he has got something to offer. The question is, does he have the stamina to do 90 minutes week in, week out, or twice a week in the SPFL and Europa League? Because at the start of the season, he looked like someone wheeling a wardrobe about the pitch. If he's got a minor niggle and he's shaking that off, great. If we can put him in a more forward position, he starts to look like that guy that was playing for Leeds, breaking the lines and shuttling forward with the ball. Great. Again, it goes back to Gerrard will come in, and I think he'll suss out pretty quickly that Gerrard. People were talking, is Rothwell going off a cliff because of injuries or age? Gerrard knows all about that. We've all seen the documentary. We've all heard how Gerrard talked about the damage that happens. So he talks about how playing in friendly games and like celeb games, he can't do a lot of the things he used to because your hips get absolutely battered and worn out playing top level football. He'll be able to look at Rothwell and go, he's got a niggle, he's coming back to fitness, he's played out of position, or this guy looks like he's gone back and he's not going to be much use. So I trust Steven Gerrard in this if he comes in. I hope for Rothwell he's the player he was last season. It'll be good for Rangers, it'll be good for him. Nobody wants a failure. And again, it comes back to the Russell Martin thing. Russell Martin started pushing him up front. He started looking quite good. Let's see what a decent management team could do with him.
Yeah, you're spot on. We're just about to hit the hour mark, folks. So thanks very much for joining us. And again, I've done another shout out. Just hit the like and subscribe button. If you're on Twitter, head over to our YouTube channel and just push that button for us and keep up to date with all our content and say that it's going to be a busy couple of days, I'd imagine. So there'll be plenty of chat from us. Stevie, Billy, thanks very much for joining me tonight. I know it's about a late one, but it was good to have you on. It's always good to listen to your opinions. And thanks to everybody in the comments as well. Really enjoyed your input and thanks for help picking my trio, which was Gary Mack, Stephen Davis, and Kevin Thompson. It's just left to say, every night's a Rangers journey night. Let's go again.